Welcome back to Alpha Recap, your after-hours look at the biggest market moves and what they mean. We're coming to you after the close, and as always, if you have questions, you can reach us at stockalpha.ai. Ready to dig in?
Absolutely. A busy day. Lots of headline-driven repositioning and some pretty elevated volume across names big and small.
Let's start with the standouts. Nvidia finished the day down about 1.5% to roughly $213 on very heavy volume.
Right. And that was about 178 million shares changing hands. That kind of liquidity can accelerate moves. And today it seemed to feed short-term volatility across the AI and semiconductor complex.
So what really stands out here is the combination of a modest pullback but massive participation. It wasn't a huge price drop, but the volume made it a focal point.
Heavy volume plus a small downward move often signals active repositioning rather than a clean trend. Traders might have been trimming exposure, hedging, or rotating into other names.
And speaking of other names, Wolfe Research lifted the price target on NXP semiconductors to $320. Analysts note that target bumps like this can spark re-rating and options activity in peers.
Exactly. So you had Wolfe turning bullish on an embedded and automotive-focused chipmaker, while AI-related hardware sentiment was a bit jittery. That contrast tells you different time horizons were at work. Analysts looking out quarters, traders reacting intraday.
Yeah, that tracks.
Intel had elevated volume too, about 143 million shares, but only slipped slightly. High participation with small price movement usually points to big holders repositioning rather than an obvious directional bet.
Honestly, I was a bit surprised by that. Heavy action but little movement can make it tricky to read the tape.
Right, and the broader theme here was that semiconductors and industrial software were getting attention on both fundamental news and event cues.
One of those quieter but important stories, the Civil Infrastructure Platform, marked its 10th anniversary. That's the Linux Foundation-backed project for industrial-grade Linux used across energy, manufacturing, and healthcare.
Which matters because standardization at the software layer reduces integration friction for vendors. If more industrial systems standardize on a common platform, demand for reliable embedded processors and controllers becomes steadier over time.
Right, that's the long game. Short term, we saw volatility in Nvidia compressing windows for re-rating across the hardware complex.
And not to forget trade show cycles. Electronic Drives and Controls is set to exhibit at Wire Expo on May 6th and 7th. Those shows can translate into contract news in the weeks that follow.
Quick hit. PayPal reorganized into 3 business units and named leaders for each. Market reaction was mixed and pretty muted overall.
Investors want the follow-up. Revenue or margin targets, reporting lines, who owns what. Right now, it's a signaling move. Analysts note restructurings like this can create trading windows if management fills in execution details.
And there was a little levity in the newsroom. 3 units, 3 leaders, 3 ways to ask for updates.
Haha, but seriously, operational housekeeping versus community outreach is a theme in fintech today. Ace Cash Express ran a financial literacy workshop in Philadelphia as part of Financial Literacy Month, a reputational and ESG positive event, even if it doesn't move earnings immediately.
Right. Community programs matter for brand and regulatory optics, but they're not a near-term earnings lever unless they scale up dramatically. Turning to energy and geopolitics. Morgan Stanley upgraded ADNOC Gas on expectations the Strait of Hormuz could reopen. That's the sort of geopolitical development that changes risk premia on Gulf exports.
If shipping routes normalize, insurance and transport costs could ease, which has knock-on effects for energy supply and some industrials. Analyst upgrades tied to normalization often act as catalysts for regional names and related ETFs.
Standard Energy Solutions promoted Bobby Young to Chief Investment Officer. So watch for partnership or capital allocation announcements that could indicate new growth initiatives.
There was a real mix today between macro geopolitical signals and micro-level leadership moves. Both are market relevant, just at different speeds and scopes.
Microcaps and leverage plays had big percentage moves too. CLDI plunged down about 4% to 23 cents on volume of about 148 million shares. Heavy activity for a microcap, and a reminder of liquidity risk.
Meanwhile, that leveraged small-cap bear ETF jumped up about 3.33% to about $5.19 on volume of roughly 182 million shares. High volume in both microcaps and leveraged products suggest active deleveraging or hedging flows.
Which means risk managers should watch concentrated portfolios for spillovers. Small names can create outsized noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Community and regional news. UNCG launched Minerva's Health Chariot, backed by United Healthcare Community Plan of North Carolina. That's an insurer-provider partnership pilot expanding primary care access.
Not a direct earnings driver today, but pilots like that can lead to partnership rollouts and procurement down the road, especially if utilization metrics are compelling.
And the Coast Guard Mutual Assistance reported about $12.1 million delivered to over 4,000 families. Those figures matter to donors and defense-linked philanthropy networks.
The Big Dipper Innovation Summit is coming May 12th through 14th in Richmond with high-profile speakers. Expect networking-driven deal announcements that could affect regional startups and infrastructure projects.
Let's pause for a couple of quick reactions.
Big move in volume today.
PayPal restructure. Curious to see the details.
Strait of Hormuz news will be a real catalyst.
Okay, patterns and themes. Elevated volume across mega-cap tech like Nvidia and Intel, and across microcaps. Analysts got bullish on semiconductors with the NXP target bump, while traders were more focused on short-term volatility in AI hardware.
Corporate restructurings and leadership changes are being used to signal strategic resets. PayPal and Standard Energy Solutions are good examples, but execution details will determine longer-term market responses.
Geopolitics stayed on the sidelines as a latent catalyst. The possibility of the Strait of Hormuz reopening is being priced in by some analysts, and if it actually happens, that would be market moving.
Community and ESG moves keep coming. They won't typically change earnings right away, but they matter for reputation and regulatory relations.
Here's what we're watching tomorrow. Follow-up commentary from PayPal clarifying reporting lines and any revenue or margin targets for the new units.
Intraday follow-through for Nvidia and Intel. Volume and options flow will reveal whether today was distribution, accumulation, or just noise.
Analyst reactions after Wolfe Research's NXP raise. Will peers adjust targets or reconfirm earnings models?
And any official announcements on the Strait of Hormuz. An actual reopening or government statement would be big for Gulf names and shipping-sensitive sectors.
Quick hits recap before we wrap. UNCG's mobile clinic backed by United Healthcare. ACE ran a financial literacy workshop. Standard Energy Solutions promoted a new CIO. The Coast Guard Group reported about $12.1 million in assistance. And electronic drives and controls will be at Wire Expo, May 6th and 7th.
All right, takeaways. 1. Volume was the story today. Elevated participation made even small moves meaningful. 2. Analysts and traders were pulling in different directions in semiconductors. Wolfe got bullish on NXP while AI hardware names corrected intraday. 3. Corporate restructurings and community programs are important signals, but execution details will determine market responses.
If you take one thing away, it's that headlines plus liquidity drove volatility more than a single macro theme. Keep an eye on follow-up commentary and event-driven catalysts.
And remember, this is informational. Analysts note trends and data points, but none of this is personalized investment advice.
Thanks for listening. If you have questions about anything we covered today, head to stockalpha.ai, where you can ask us directly and we'll answer live. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai. See you tomorrow after the close.